You're listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA legends, pros, and top instructors come to share their stories, insights, and tips. Now, back to you, Chris.
All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is Paul Ramee. Let me remind you about Paul's background. Played his college golf at Seton Hall. Paul became a Class A certified PGA professional back in 1996. In 2013, he was named the Horton Smith Award winner for his dedication to education. Paul has been an assistant golf professional at the Park Country Club up in Williamsville, New York, Canoe Brook Country Club in Summit, New Jersey, and at Oakmont Country Club as well. He was one of the inaugural instructors at the Golf Channel Golf Academy, which you can see on the Golf Channel and golfchannel.com. He was a 2016 Connecticut PGA Section Teacher of the Year Award winner. Golf Digest consistently ranks him as one of the top 3 instructors in the state of Connecticut. And since 2003, he has been the director of golf and club manager at Bulls Bridge Golf Club in Kent, Connecticut, which is in the western part of the state, almost right there on the New York border. And I'm very honored to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Good evening, Paul. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me back.
So, Paul, before we get into all the golf stuff, I want to get an update on your son, Hunter, who is a tremendous college golfer. He followed you at Seton Hall. So give us an update. How's Hunter doing?
It's nice of you to ask. He had a decent freshman year. He didn't have a whole lot of expectations, played a couple events in the fall, and unfortunately didn't play too much in the spring. But fortunately for his mom and dad, he didn't make a bogey in the classroom and ended up the year on the dean's list. And he's back home now working hard for his full complement of summer events. And they've got a couple kids graduating, so he's hoping to, move up the roster spots on the team.
So, Paul, now that he's back for summer, is it something you're going to work on his game with him as an instructor, or do you have to sort of step back and just be dad and let his coach be the guy that works with him on his game?
No, I've been working with him for a while here, and he actually had a couple lessons with Tom Patrick, believe it or not, who's going to be on your show here later. And yeah, I've known Tom for the better part of 25 years. And, Tom was in Naples and out on Long Island. It just became a little bit too tough to get to Tom. So I've taken over that responsibility. And I work with a couple of the other kids on the team at Seton Hall before Hunter got there. So, I head down, probably twice a month while they're in school. A couple of times the boys came up to Connecticut to visit us. And, now that he's home, we're back out on the range, and we've had a little bit of a tough spring weather-wise up here, so he's actually been hitting some balls in my indoor facility, which I've actually closed down, now for the summer season. But he's working hard, and he knows I'm here. I'm probably hovering a little bit too much for him, but he knows that I'm here, and if he needs me, I'm willing to jump in.
And Paul, we talk a fair amount on this show about the mental side of the game, and I was curious, for Hunter or for your students, when you start working with them or you start communicating those sorts of things, with your son, how do you help him deal with the mental side of the game, particularly, as you get through high school and into college, you're starting to play in front of some crowds. Right now, you've got some galleries there, and that may be the first time that he starts to deal with those sorts of things, or even for your students and the members, at where you're at. How do you help them deal with playing in front of the crowd for the first time?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think, initially first you see the people, and then secondarily you got to tune them out or, lots of times let them frame your targets. The more the people that you have lining the fairways, the more that they become kind of natural borders and let the fairway kind of stick out. And also with the green, when you're hitting your approach shot into the green, that semicircle of people around the green is your target. And that's where you're looking to, hit it in between them. I mean, obviously people at the tour level are much more familiar with hitting it, around fans, but, it's just something that you'll get better at as you continue to do it.
How's it being his dad out in the gallery watching him?
It's terrible. I mean, his first event I drove, it was a Saturday, with Golf Stat now, I can track just about every third hole they post his score. So bailed out of work on a Saturday and the second Saturday of September and drove 6 hours to Colgate to kind of catch him, afternoon around there. And he shot one over in his first college round, and then, followed it up with a couple over par in the afternoon. I think he got a little fatigued, but yeah, it's terrible. I would rather be the one hitting the golf shots than watching my kids hit their golf shots anytime. So I'm a basket
Well,
kid.
Switching gears a little bit, it looks like you recently took a trip over to Scotland, and from some of the things you posted on social media, it looks like one of those golf trips of a lifetime. Talk about what you did over there and where you played.
Yeah, so actually, honestly, I take about 15 members every year to Scotland or Ireland. So we've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years, and we've got a great group of people who go every year. So we started out the first day at Nairn, which is just, in the last 15 years hosted the Walker Cup. Then we went up to the Scottish Highlands. We had a little bit of rain there the first day. Then next day we played at Brora in the morning and Royal Dornoch, which is top 5 in the world. Brora is an interesting golf course. Their maintenance budget is like $200,000. They literally have sheep and cattle that graze and cut the rough in the fairway. So they have electric fences around each green that you got to step over, so the cattle and the sheep don't step up on the greens.
Wow.
Then we played Castle Stewart, which is a newer, a little bit more Americanized golf course, owned by the same people that own Kings Barnes. It was some beautiful views. And the real, I always say to the members that I'm taking over, I hope we get like 9 holes of real Scottish weather. Well, we played this golf course called Cruden Bay, which is an amazing golf course. The routing, the views, there's a huge old castle there, which was the inspiration for, Bram Stoker was on a ship coming into port there at Cruden Bay, and he saw this castle, and it was his inspiration for Dracula. That's how old and medieval this area is. And it was unfortunate. That was the one day we got the sideways rain, the 30 mile per hour winds, and the 50-degree weather, because some of the views there are just amazing. But Cruden Bay was an incredible golf course. And then the last day was we were supposed to play Cruden Bay again, but unfortunately we couldn't. So we got on a golf course called Panmure, which is right next door to Carnoustie. Now we've played Carnoustie in some of our prior trips. So, a couple of the members were asking about why aren't we playing Carnoustie again? But Panmure turned out to be the golf course that Hogan, prior to the 53 Open at Carnoustie, he went to Panmure for the 2 weeks before and practiced there basically on the 5th and 6th hole, which are 6th and 7th hole, excuse me, these 2 great par 4s that he believes got him ready for playing at Carnoustie and ultimately winning in 1953.
So you got the sideways rain, so you got that piece. Now, so often we hear about those sorts of conditions over there. You get all 4 seasons in the course of a round of golf. So you got the sideways rain piece. Did you get the winter, summer, and fall as well? Well, yeah, we did. I mean, we had it, one day was 50, and then one day we were down to, just golf shirts, 70 degrees one day at Royal Dornoch, and the sun came out and it was beautiful. So you experience all 4 seasons. So, Paul, bringing it back to home, talk about your home course, Bullsbridge Golf Club, because from what I've seen online, looks like a great Tom Fazio design. Talk about what it's like there.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've been here since the beginning, 2003. We have it's really a second home community. I call it the anti-Hamptons. It's for people that don't want to schlep out, east after a long week in Manhattan. They get in their cars, they drive up to the country here. We've got about 160 members, play about 8,000 rounds of golf a year. It's a great group of people. It allows me to really interact with people. Fazio did a magnificent job. We started about 800 feet above sea level. You kind of play down and then you play back up, and you never really feel like you're, standing on the side of a hill like some of the golf courses you do, like in Vermont. But it's a great group of people. We have a great instruction program, a pretty good junior golf program, and it's a place I hope I can retire from in about 20 years.
So let's expand a little bit on that and talk about your instructional program, and then certainly talk about the junior golf program that you got there. But I wanted to start with, now I saw on the site, bowlesbridgegolfclub.com, and you go under the family friendly tab, and there's a picture of a junior golfer hitting water balloons with an iron. What's that drill?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's you got to hook them with and let them believe that golf is fun before you really start to throw all the etiquette and rules at it. We've got a philosophy that, it's okay. A busy day for us during the week in the summer is about 30 people. So kids can really be kids there. They can run around. We got a frosty machine and they're having ice cream every time we have a break. And there's pictures of my kid on there holding a frog. I mean, they leave ending up thinking that golf is fun. At the end, we kind of trick them, we're competing against tennis and lacrosse and, ice hockey up here. So it's our way of kind of setting the hook early with these kids and creating lifelong golfers.
So let's talk a little bit about the other instructional programs that you have there. And I saw that you were partnering with SwingU on an instructional and training app. Talk about what that's all about.
Yeah. So pretty excited about this. We're just unveiling it, just kind of out of the beta stage now. Ability for me to upload content whenever whatever I want, basically. Walking down the fairway, you come up with a drill, you just load it up, and other things like the pictures from our recent golf trip to Scotland. So, the ability, I'm not hoping to slow down play, but if somebody's out there and they're on the golf course and they come into a situation at our course where we play 8,000 rounds, there's never anybody behind you and they've got the ball below their feet, they can go to the app real quick and take a look on how to hit that shot. I wouldn't recommend it for, the course where they're doing 25,000 rounds, but for my members and my students, I think it's, it was something that I've always thought that I wanted to do, and SwingU came along. They've been terrific. I'm looking forward to using this device, this app for years to come.
Paul, I want to get a couple of playing lessons for our listeners as well from you. And one of the toughest shots in golf is when we've short-sighted ourselves just off the green in some heavy rough. It's a shot we typically, we're either trying to scoop it out and we hit it fat, or we just dump it right there, and don't move the ball very far or scull it, completely across the other side of the green. So how can we do a better job of getting that ball on the green and close to the hole?
Yeah, well, I see that a lot. We've got a lot of steep embankments at Bowlesbridge, and I really like to see, to begin with, people keeping a lot of weight on their left side. The scooping, the hitting behind it, the hitting thin comes from when that weight shifts from the left side to the right side, and that golf club gets into the grass, behind the ball, the thick grass behind the ball. So I like to see people set up with about 70% of the weight on their left side, maybe get a little taller. That's going to help with a steeper angle of attack, and then really feel like you lift the club. I like to see the left wrist almost get a little cupped in the backswing. That would mean, like rather than having your left wrist roll around you, feel like it's moving upward, and then really allowing that club to, come down steeply, into the ball. And then I almost like to see a little bit of a lower finish. A lot of times when people try and create a higher finish, that golf club leaves the hitting area too quickly. And once again, that leading edge can get into the ball, or we can get a little heavy.
Paul, another shot we've been talking about here recently, my father and I actually had this conversation this past weekend, is using the hybrid around the greens to chip with. Talk about how the ground can be our friend, how we can more effectively use the hybrid versus choosing a well-lofted club.
Yeah, well, having just come back from Scotland, I mean, this was a shot that I talked to a lot of my members about when we were over there. There's so much tight grass, and you first have to identify it, Chris. I mean, I think the hard part is so many times people just kind of default to their lob wedge, and I'm only 6 paces off. I'm going to take that lob wedge, and you got this tight grass, and going back to the last question, that body starts moving a little bit. That sand wedge is going to bounce off that grass right into the back of that ball. So, we talked a lot about this on our Scotland trip with, using your putter or using your hybrid. And, I get in there and try and choke down a little bit first on the hybrid. I play the ball still in the middle of my stance. I use a putting motion. You have to develop a little bit of touch. It takes a little bit of time. I mean, not every shot is the same. So you have to realize that ball is going to come off of that hybrid with a little more pop. And, that little bit of loft on that hybrid is going to help get that ball initially off the ground, get it up on top of the grass, and get it rolling, hopefully up onto the green and close to the hole. Similar to my putting motion, I'm not engaging my wrists or, my elbows at all, just trying to, use my shoulders and arms and swing that, just back and forth like my putter.
And so sticking in that same sort of area, I think one of the things that we all struggle with is trying to get to club selection, right? I mean, we talk about the hybrid here. You mentioned sand wedge. If it's just a sort of a flat lie, and now we're somewhere in that 20, 30 yards off the green, or even closer for that matter. Talk about your idea for shot selection. How do we know, or for club selection, how do we know which one to go with? Should we be using a lower lofted club like a 7 or an 8 iron, 9 iron pitching wedge? How do you teach your students to decide which club to pull?
So I'll take a lot of my, that's a great question. I'll take a lot of my students out to an area and I'll put 3 tees in the ground. I'll put, we have a lot of long greens at Bullsbridge. So I'll take them out, 20 paces off the green or something. I'll put a tee, 5, 6 paces on, the next tee, 10, 15 paces on, the next tee, 20, 25 paces on. And Hogan had an old saying, if the pin's in the front, the ball goes in high. Pins in the back, the ball goes in low. The pins on the left, it goes in right to left. The pins on the right, goes in left to right. So I'll try and get in there and I'll get 3 different clubs with them. I may get their sand wedge, their 9 iron, and their 7 iron, and we'll stand there from the same spot and we'll try and make the same swing. Now, this is a little bit bigger than the swing I just explained where, it's just a putting motion. This is a little bit bigger than your typical putting motion, but it's still, I'm still not using much wrist hinge or elbows at all. So if we can kind of continue to make a bigger one lever motion, a bigger, almost where you're swinging that club, just shy of waist high and you haven't really engaged the wrist yet, and then swinging it through to a similar length on the follow through, you use that, that pitching wedge or sand wedge first, you're going to have a little bit higher trajectory. The ball's not going to have as much run out. You go to that 9 iron, you're going to have a mid-height trajectory, mid trajectory, and then, some run out. And then you go to that 7 iron when that ball, it pins in the back, and that ball is going to have a lower trajectory, obviously, and a little bit more run. But, we've kind of made one motion, and, you're kind of in a little bit of a gray area here. You're not chipping and you're not out there pitching where you need to start hinging and using your wrists and elbows much. But so in that gray area, you can kind of, accomplish, 3, 4, 5, 6 different distances with the same motion and different clubs. But, same thing, a lot of weight, some weight on the left side. So we make sure we're catching that ball first. We don't want to, get moving around and hit into the ground, behind it.
So one more before I let you go, Paul, and staying on
absolutely.
that same sort of, that same area. Talk about stance and ball position. I've seen people with a shoulder width stance. I've seen it with feet almost close together. I've seen Phil Mickelson talk about, either the ball is way forward off the front toe or is either way back off the back toe. Talk about what you teach and how we should be, ball position and standing up to that shot.
Yeah, so I think, starting out with stance width, you have to assess somebody's mobility and stability. I mean, if somebody's got bad balance, you might go with a little bit wider stance. If somebody's, pretty agile, maybe you get them a little bit more narrow so they to maintain their mobility. And then I'm a believer that, if we're just trying to hit a standard trajectory shot, that, you're kind of your 7 iron through sand wedge is played from the middle of your stance. Then you would move the golf ball, a half inch forward for each club, moving, all the way to just about, your left instep with the driver. I'm a believer that you get that golf ball in the front of your stance. It's going to be more likely to let people, move through the golf shot, get onto their left leg. We start bringing that ball too far back in their stance, unless you're hitting a specialty shot, a low shot, if you're playing in some wind, and you move it back in your stance a little bit. That ball should be from, played from the center of your stance, up towards your left instep with the driver. But like I said, I really do assess, stance width based on what I see in the person's, mobility and how stable they are.
Paul, before we let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing and follow you, whether it's online or it's on social media?
Well, www.paulrameegolf and .com, obviously. And then on Twitter at Paul Ramee Golf, Instagram, Paul Ramee Golf. That's about it.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. I hope you'll do it again soon. Always like spending time with you.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Great talking to you. And so tell Tom Patry there that I said hi, and good luck out there in Indiana this summer.
I will do it. Take care, Paul. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
You too. Thanks so much. Bye.
That is the great Paul Ramee, Ramee. So check him out online, paulrameegolf.com, and on social media at Paul Ramee. I tell you, folks, you take a look at some of the things that he posts. First, from an instructional perspective, great videos out there available. Again, as I mentioned in his intro, one of the inaugural instructors at Golf Channel Academy. So great stuff available out there in video, and then also stuff that you'll find on his website and on social media as well. Look forward to having Paul back on the show again soon.